This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. We begin today with the battle to replace the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died on Friday. It's an issue that could dominate this year's election and prompted both parties to spend the weekend on the offensive. Ginsburg's public viewing is this Wednesday and Thursday. She will lie in state Friday at the U.S. Capitol. President Trump has promised to move swiftly to announce his nominee to replace her. Senate Republicans are racing to confirm whomever the president nominates before the end of the year, and they're facing full-throated Democratic opposition. They're also struggling to keep GOP senators unified. If the nominee to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg turns out to be Amy Coney Barrett, why is it she's so popular among conservatives? And what was Ginsburg like behind the scenes? Paul Strand spoke with several people involved with the judicial scene in Washington.
Biden wins, Democrats could try to blockade and stall the confirmation process of a Trump nominee till Biden's inaugurated.
Stalling was certainly their technique during the Kavanaugh confirmation process. I think it'll probably be their technique again. Last time it appeared to backfire.
I think that this is going to make the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing seem like a dust-up.
It'll certainly be contentious if the candidate is Amy Coney Barrett, who Democrats believe would be in favor of overturning Roe v. Wade. If she does get the nod, it's going to overjoy Americans United for Life. The pro-life groups asked Trump to name her, and not because why many might think.
She is a jurist who recognizes that her highest calling and duty is to the U.S. Constitution, is to the rule of law. Unlike many on the left, unlike many of the judicial activists that we see, she is not going to let her personal preferences bleed into her ruling.
And Democrats went after Barrett over her personal religious beliefs, trying to keep her off the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals 2 years ago.
Anybody who watched that confirmation hearing was well aware of the fact that she showed great grace under fire.
Foster points out, as a hardworking judge and mom of 7, Barrett exemplifies the kind of professional that equal rights champion Ginsburg fought so hard to protect and support.
In her early days as an advocate before joining the court, someone who has proven that it is possible to both raise a family and participate actively in the public square in civic life.
But expect an intense battle.
Just because it's a woman, that doesn't mean that Democrats are going to handle the person with kids' gloves.
Carrie Severino worked in the Supreme Court while Ginsburg was there and says she'd hate such bitter confirmation battles. During the combat over Kavanaugh,
She went on record saying, I don't like the way things are now.
Some contend American politics have never been this toxic. Severino believes both sides could learn from Ginsburg's genuine friendships with conservatives Antonin Scalia and Clarence Thomas.
It's a lesson and a reminder that we need to be able to disagree with people, even about issues that we hold very strongly, while still recognizing their common humanity and being able to treat them with love and respect.
She was a fierce fighter.
If Antonin Scalia was a lion in the law, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a lioness.
She believed, though, friendship with foes was a virtue.
I think that's one of the positive things about life tenure on the Supreme Court is everyone there knows you're going to be working with these same people for the rest of your lives. And so there's no point making enemies unnecessarily.
Paul Strand, CBN News.
For more on Ginsburg's work and legacy and the latest from our nation's capital, be sure to tune into Faith Nation this evening right here on the CBN News Channel. The 2020 Atlantic hurricane season is not slowing down, and the Gulf Coast of the U.S. cannot seem to catch a break. Tropical Storm Beta is heading for the Texas-Louisiana coastline. Meanwhile, as the fires continue to consume the West, Southern California had another surprise. George Thomas has the details.
The water out here already over the road, so we're probably going to pack up and try to leave a little early.
On Highway 87 near Galveston, Texas, residents evacuating ahead of Tropical Storm Beta.
That little road over there has flooded just since we've been here.
John Marklin and Sonia Moore to the rescue, helping push this car after the owner got stuck in rising waters. Forecasters expecting Beta to bring flooding rainfall, storm surge up to 60 miles per hour winds, and at least 15 inches of rain to parts of Texas and Louisiana through Wednesday.
We can expect surface flooding in all the usual spots.
In the low-lying areas of coastal Texas and Louisiana, folks still recovering from Hurricane Laura a few weeks ago dealing with flooding streets again.
Starting to become monotonous because there's so much, it's like every month or every other week we're having to deal with this stuff.
Meanwhile, this was the scene in the mountains of northeast Los Angeles last night, where the Bobcat fire that's been burning for 2 weeks doubled in size in the last 24 hours. The 103,000-acre blaze leaving portions of the San Gabriel Mountains blackened, forcing more residents to flee ahead of fast-moving fires that have already claimed 36 lives.
Embers just lit up, so I started seeing flames, and it went down the hill really fast.
Residents urged to limit their outdoor exposure as firefighters on the ground battled the blaze to protect homes, while in the air, multiple planes dropped fire retardant. And check this out, a motorist capturing these dramatic images near the Big Pine Highway in Lago Vista as a smoke tornado crosses the road. Fire officials say it could be a month before they can contain the Bobcat fire. And as if the fires weren't enough to deal with, residents of Southern California got a jolt late Friday night after a 4.5 magnitude earthquake hit the city of El Monte, east of downtown LA. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries or damage. George Thomas, CBN News.
Weatherbelt Chief Forecaster Joe Bastardi joins us now with more on Tropical Storm Beta and a look at the rest of the hurricane season. Welcome, Joe.
Well, nice to be here. First of all, let me say something about the wildfires. They may back down for a while, but I'll tell you what, I'm looking at this weather pattern. A week to 2 weeks may be really bad. They may be Santa Ana's, which we didn't really see with the last burst of wildfires developing. More record heat is going to develop in the west, while more record cold comes down into the plains in the eastern part of the United States. There have been some places, folks, that have had their shortest frost-to-frost period on records in the Northeast. Now, let's get to Beta. Beta is not a particularly strong storm, but here's the problem. There have been 2, 3, 4 days of east to southeast winds piling water back into Galveston. Now, along the seawall, that's not a problem. But where the beaches were eroded by Laura, and we don't have the dunes there anymore, the water's just coming right in. And fortunately, a lot of those houses on the west end of Galveston are up on stilts, so, 8, 10 feet above the water. But it's a pretty scary scene once you get away from the seawall. Now, the thing with Beta is it did not intensify coming to the coast, which was a blessing. But after going into Port Lavaca, it's going to sit around and come back out over the water, head east-northeastward. In the meantime, this is a very complex pattern because you've got this band of moisture that's coming up towards southeast Louisiana, and it's going to keep repeating itself. And the place that may wind up with the most rain, the big city that may wind up with the most rain, may be New Orleans out of this over a 3, 4, 5-day period. Teddy is going east to Bermuda, will stay out, and then the hurricane season will back down for about a week. But on Weatherbelt, we're telling people we believe that the month of October will have 1 or 2 storms come out of the Caribbean and perhaps some major hurricanes coming out of the Caribbean. It's the pattern we're in. We outlined it back in April. We're still in it.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit later. But first of all, what will be the worst impacts of Tropical Storm Beta? And will previous storm damage from this season be a factor, Joe?
Well, the erosion of beaches, especially around Galveston. My sister-in-law lives out on the west end of Galveston Island. She was telling me they got back from Laura, and even though Laura, had 20, 30-mile-an-hour winds out at Galveston, there was no beach left. All the dunes were gone. Now, what happens is that, if you have 3, 4, 5-foot storm surge like you do with this, it just overruns the entire area. So you've got that area. Now, the seawall area is just fine in Galveston, and there's not going to be that much rain in Galveston. In fact, you're going to find near the center of this, while there's local flooding, it's not as bad as some of the other storms. The area I'm most worried about as far as heaviest rains is around New Orleans. And it may take 3 to 4 days to do that, but there may be some places in there getting 1 foot to 2 feet of rain.
And quickly, what can we expect? You already talked about this, but elaborate just a little bit more as the hurricane season wraps up. Any more major storms, do you think, are going to hit the U.S. coastline?
Yeah, I believe that's going to happen. I think we're going to have to watch the Western Caribbean as we get into October. There's going to be a tremendous shot of cold air into the east again. And you notice what happened. We were outlining this on CBN a couple of weeks ago, that even if the African waves don't get here, when you get cold air into the United States in September and October and the water's warm, there's always trouble. Both Sally and Beta developed not out of African waves. They developed in response to a pattern. So what is probably going to happen is you're going to see this big trough coming to the east first week of October with cold air. When it pulls out, right underneath it in the Caribbean, you watch for something. That's how Michael, by the way, came up. I'm not saying another Michael's on the way, but I'm saying we're already tuned into that for the end game.
Okay, we definitely need to be on alert. All right, Joe Bastardi, chief weather forecaster for weatherbell.com. Thank you, Joe, as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
You too. CBN's Operation Blessing disaster relief team is already answering the critical needs of Gulf Coast residents. And if you'd like to give to Operation Blessing, you can donate to the Disaster Relief Fund. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or visit cbn.com. Now to the latest on the coronavirus emergency. The number of American lives lost to the virus is nearly 200,000. According to the COVID Tracking Project, nearly 29,000 people are currently hospitalized. That's the lowest number since June. But 3 states, Montana, Hawaii, and West Virginia, are setting new records for deaths. New studies show the virus taking the lives of more men than women, while the majority of deaths are people over 65 years old, with roughly 40% linked to long-term care facilities. The Guardian and Kaiser Health are reporting the virus has taken the lives of nearly 1,200 frontline workers between the ages of 20 and 80.
As a physician, I'm still stressed out because a lot of things are unknown about this disease process.
Health professionals are bracing for a surge in cases as we head into winter months, and they're still urging people to maintain social distancing and wear masks. In Israel, people are grappling with a second coronavirus lockdown that began Friday afternoon, shortly before a long holiday weekend. Police set up roadblocks to stop non-essential intercity and crosstown travel. They said they'd had given out nearly 7,000 fines to people who were not keeping the rules and regulations of the health ministry. The lockdown has closed stores, restaurants, and schools, but left some businesses open and reduced public transport. Israelis are only permitted to travel 1 kilometer from their homes, except for essential services or on foot for exercise. Still, many Israelis are saying this lockdown doesn't feel nearly as strict as the previous one. The new lockdown was imposed after the number of new cases soared to around 5,000 per day, with more than 1,200 deaths so far. Israel's coronavirus cabinet is expected to meet tomorrow to discuss tightening restrictions. Coming up, the presidential election just weeks away, how Christians can let their faith guide them as they head to the polls. But before we go to break, here's a look at what's trending on CBNNews.com.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. life in your finances, life in your body, mind, and spirit, life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to Newswatch. A new national survey found that this year's election is bringing higher voter engagement. A poll by the Pew Research Center shows 83% of voters say it really matters who wins this election, which is up 9% from 2016. For Christian voters, choosing who to vote for can lead them to wrestle with their beliefs. FaithWire.com's Trey Goins-Phillips says Christians need to remember we're called to be good citizens on earth, but our ultimate allegiance is to the kingdom of God. And he joins us now to talk more on how Christians can find peace in their politics. Trey, it's an intense election coming up. What are you hearing from Christian voters this year?
Yeah, thanks for having me today. So I think a lot of it is just kind of it's among Christians and everybody in general. Is a lot of anxiety, stress, worry about the future of our country. So there are obviously certain issues that Christians are more attuned to. A big one, obviously, being abortion and the pro-life movement. So, like I said, I think a lot of it is just anxiety because of not only COVID, the pandemic, but also the unrest, the racialized protests, riots, and looting that's been going on across the country.
You titled your recent article, How You Vote in November Will Not Decide Your Salvation. So how should Christians respond when their political affiliations are challenged against the belief system they follow?
Yeah, and you mentioned at the onset of our talk about that this is temporary. That we need to live kingdom principles on earth, like the Lord's Prayer says that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I kind of see this as like when you go on a family vacation, maybe you go to a park or something. Growing up, I always sort of want to leave it better than we found it. I think Christians are in the same situation. We need to leave earth better than we found it. Though we also need to keep in mind that this is temporary, that this world will eventually fall away, that God has got a greater plan. So we need to be voting. We need to be cognizant of the issues that matter. We need to play an active role in society. But we also need to balance that with the fact that we're not of this world, that this is not our home. So we need to not get bogged down and just totally depressed and worried about the current situation. But know that what happens now is, like I said, is temporary, and God is in control.
But yeah, we're also here for such a time as this, so we need to make sure we vote biblical principles with the candidates. Most people assume those who identify as Christian are conservative voters, but that's not always the case. What do you know about Christian voters who lean Democrat?
Look, I think this is a tough election. Just like the last couple elections that we've had have been difficult elections. We've had candidates that are disappointing in different ways. Whether it's policy or in their personal life, there are many things to be disappointed at, and there are also things to be happy with. There are a lot of accomplishments that candidates and that the current president have made that are noteworthy and that should be celebrated, regardless of where you fall. If you're a believer, there have been religious liberty victories in this administration. There have been pro-life victories in this administration. So there are things that can be celebrated regardless of your political affiliation. And I know this is a bit of a generalization, but I think a lot of times when it comes to Christians who identify more liberally, it's because they lean more heavily, perhaps, maybe to a fault sometimes, on the idea of grace, whereas conservatives, and I know, like I said, this is a generalization, whereas conservatives lean more on justice and the law. So I think it's about finding that balance and not necessarily affiliating yourself with a Republican or a Democrat, but looking at the people who are on the ballot and saying, who has the track record that proves biblical principles, that stands with what Christ would care about. And I think, keeping that in mind, that at the end of the day, my affiliation is not Republican or Democrat. My affiliation is I'm a member of the family of God. I'm part of the kingdom of Christ, and that's where my priorities should lie. And I should seek to be a part of my society with that in mind.
Okay, Trey Goins-Phillips with FaithWire.com. Thank you, Trey. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And you can catch FaithWire's Faith versus Culture right here on the CBN News Channel tonight. It's at 9:30 Eastern. After the break, how spiritual leaders and Christians are banding together in prayer in an effort to unite Americans before the election.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
And ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
As the country's political divide grows wider by the day, spiritual leaders in Ohio believe prayer can turn the tide. On September 25th, they will put it into practice, that is, with the Capitol Prayer Event. Charlene Aaron brings us the details.
A team of volunteers is planning to hold the statewide prayer event in Columbus on the western side of the State House. The purpose? To pray for spiritual renewal and God's will for the state and the nation ahead of the November elections.
We're calling on the church.
Brian Hansen of Capital Ministries, best known for its ministry to lawmakers, says turning to God in prayer is the only answer for what's ailing a divided America.
We're looking to our politicians, our political leaders, for all the answers to what's going on. This policy or that policy, or we've done this right, or we've done that. You know what? The fact of the matter is this: we don't have a policy problem. We have a soul problem.
All reasons why Hansen says the church must stand in the gap like never before.
We're coming to the creator of the universe and saying, Lord, we don't know where we go from here, but we do know this. We stand before an almighty God, and we are inferior to you. Would you heal our land? The rest we leave up to the Lord.
For 1 hour on Friday, September 25th, churches across Ohio will also gather to seek forgiveness, mercy, and favor upon America and our political leaders.
We are putting together, as you referenced, what we're calling prayer pods. And we're just asking people if they would join together. We're going to live stream it so that they can follow along. And there is going to be worship, but the meat of the whole thing is going to be the prayer.
And Hansen wants all to know the rally will be nonpartisan and non-denominational.
I want it to be perfectly clear. We are bipartisan. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, in the middle somewhere on the far. It doesn't matter. What you're not going to find is God, please help President Trump get elected, or God, please help Vice President Biden get elected. It's not going to be that.
In the 40 days leading up to the presidential election, Hansen and his team are encouraging people to set aside time to pray and fast each day that God's will would be done.
He already tells us he sets in authority whom he wants, but we're just praying in line with what God has predetermined.
At the end of the day, he wants the focus to be more about Americans' hearts than their politics.
Lord, convict me where I need where I need to see you more in my life. Convict me of my sin, and because if we truly want to see our world, our nation have a right standing before an almighty God, it does start with me.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Still ahead, how one Christian comedian isn't letting the coronavirus pandemic stop him from bringing laughter and fun in a unique way.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Christian comedian Michael Jr. has announced his new interactive virtual comedy tour. It's called Laugh Your Mask Off. Interesting title, and features families from across the country that he'll be talking to live on Zoom. He says his job as a comedian is more important than ever now.
I don't just bring laughter for the sake of comedy. I actually use laughter to inspire people. We need to take a break from just focusing on all the pain and give ourselves permission to laugh.
And that's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.